Well, the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas came into effect back on January 19th. But as we've been hearing, some of the key terms remain unfulfilled, which has pushed the deal to the brink over the last week. Hamas has accused Israel of stalling the humanitarian protocol. Let's take a closer look then. Under the agreement, 12,000 aid trucks were expected to have entered by this week, but only 8,500 actually have. Most of that aid so far has consisted of food, which means that critical supplies for shelter and reconstruction remain very scarce. Gazans need some 200,000 tents, 60,000 mobile homes, but only 10% of the tents have arrived and even fewer of the caravans. Meanwhile, the ongoing fuel shortage is crippling essential services. Despite the agreement calling for 50 fuel trucks to enter daily, only 15 are being allowed in. Severe power cuts have left hospitals and key infrastructure struggling to function. Meanwhile, medical equipment is also being blocked from entering, while patients in need of urgent care are being denied evacuation. The ceasefire agreement allows for over 150 medical evacuations a day. Only 50 patients and some wounded have been permitted to leave Gaza daily. And rebuilding remains at a standstill, with 55 million tons of debris still uncleared. Israel continues to block the entry of heavy machinery, preventing bodies from being recovered, roads from being reopened, and reconstruction from beginning.
The ceasefire has offered a much-needed respite, but there is simply no time to lose. Our hope has been that the ceasefire creates the conditions to ensure rapid, unhindered, and safe humanitarian access to provide relief for all. 6,000 personnel, we stand ready to support implementation of the ceasefire deal and scale up the delivery of sustained humanitarian relief. We reiterate the call for a permanent ceasefire and the release of hostages without delay.
Well, let's cross now to Sydney and speak to Nasser Mashni. He's the president of the Australia Palestine Advocacy Network. Thank you so much for joining us on the News Hour. How serious, Nasser, would you say these breaches of the ceasefire by Israel are? Can we say that even though there are these issues, in spirit, in broad terms, the deal is being followed?
Look, we know absolutely that Israel cannot tell the truth. Everything that comes out of Israel, out of that regime, whether it's a spokesperson or a lobbyist or advocate anywhere on earth, everything they say is a lie. And that's true from beheaded babies and systematic rapes all the way through to we didn't kill any Israeli citizens that day. We've had the indicted war criminal, Yoav Gallant, confirm that over 20 Apache helicopters refueled at least a couple of times, strafing the entire area on October 7. This is beyond shameful, and it's wonderful that you were able to bring up those schematics earlier on to show the disparity between what was agreed and what is actually being delivered. This is beyond disappointing that Israel is being allowed to do this, but it speaks to the hypocrisy and complicity of the West that Israel can still claim to be part of the ceasefire and not fulfill its obligations and continue. Palestinians have ceased, but Israel has continued to fire.
How confident then does that leave you that the prisoner exchange will go ahead as planned tomorrow? And what about in the longer term? Do you think the next stage of negotiations will take off and then we'll move to phase 2 of the ceasefire deal? Or are you quite worried about that?
Look, I've got no confidence at all in Israel. What we saw when Benjamin Netanyahu stood beside what can only be described as a crazed Donald Trump, he looked like the cat that ate the canary, with Donald Trump telling him that he was going to ethnically cleanse, engineer the demographic outcome that Israel has planned. From the word go, this has not been about Hamas. It's not been about the hostages. It's been about making Gaza unlivable, uninhabitable, so that it can be ethnically cleansed in the way that they are planning. So my hopes for a ceasefire, they're zero. What we need is the full engagement of the international community so that Palestinians can have self-determination. Gaza needs to be rebuilt by Palestinians in conjunction with Palestinians. And the actual solution today is, as the International Court of Justice said, all of the settlements are illegal, all of the settlers have to be evacuated. Palestinians should be immediately sent to the West Bank, to those illegal settlements, and housed there whilst Gaza is rebuilt. And the Palestinians that are refugees from 1948 Palestine should be allowed and immediately to go home to their ancestral villages and housed there as well.
Nasser, your language there, you use the word should a lot. It should be allowed, this should happen. Realistically, do you think it will?
I don't realistically think it will in the days and weeks ahead of us, but I'm very optimistic in the years and perhaps maximum 2 decades that will happen. October 6 was peak Israel. Israel will celebrate its 77th birthday, or in fact stillborn, because it will not make 100. Palestine will be free from the river to the sea before Israel makes its 100th year, and the date when history goes back will see that the impunity that Israel enjoyed, the normalcy that Israel enjoyed, was October 6, 2023 was the end of it. There's no going back from here. The world is awake to the crimes of this regime. The world is awake to the fascism of this society and to the evil barbarity of a world that allows for this to happen, and for a global south, for the rest of the world to see a hypocrisy. I mean, we've seen the application of international law, of international engagement, of UN resolutions when it comes to Russia and Ukraine. There is no difference here. There is no difference. Israel must be treated exactly the same as Russia. Everyone needs to stop doing business with it. It can't be allowed to go to the Olympics or tennis tournaments. It must be treated like a rogue, apartheid, genocidal state.
Okay. Nasser Mashni from Sydney, thank you.
Thank you.